So finally we get to Yuri Bezmenov.
I was born in a military family. My father was a high-ranking officer of the Soviet Army General Staff. I graduated from Oriental Studies Institute, affiliated to Moscow State University, in 1963. I started working with Novosti Press Agency, the biggest propaganda and ideological subversion organization of USSR, which is directly under KGB. Ostensibly, it's a public news agency. Novosti in Russian language means news, but there are no news. It's mainly propaganda.
Who, speaking from the perspective of a defecting KGB agent.
I defected in 1970, landed in Canada, worked for several years as a producer of Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, overseas service in Russian language, similar to Voice of America.
Gives us a good working definition of ideological subversion.
Ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow.
It's always a destructive, aggressive activity aimed to destroy the country, nation, or geographical area of your enemy.
So he defines it as a destructive, aggressive activity aimed to destroy a country, a nation, or geographical area of the enemy.
That the perception of reality of your enemy is screwed up to such an extent that he does not perceive you as an enemy. The final stage of subversion, after which you can simply take your enemy without a single shot being fired.
Yuri gives us the 4 phases of subversion, where he says, first you have demoralization, then destabilization, and then crisis, and then normalization. And so he goes into the first phase. He goes, it's demoralization.
It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy.
Well, what are you doing during this re-education process?
Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism.
We would snow plow editorial offices, student organizations, religious groups with literature of class struggle, if not directly Marxism-Leninism propaganda, then a propaganda of a legitimate aspirations of working class, betterment of life, equality.
Well, we infiltrate and we influence all the areas where public opinion is often formulated or shaped.
Bribery, corruption, befriending politicians, members of parliament, influential scholars, members of civil service, businessmen. In other words, anyone who has anything to do with shaping of public opinion.
And so, well, what areas would those be? Well, they're in religion and education and social life and government and politics and law enforcement. And so, well, okay, so what do you do for religion? Oh, for religion, we politicize it, we commercialize it, we criticize it, we ridicule it, we disband it, we discredit it. Oh, what do you do for the educational system? Oh, we relativize everything. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Oh, wow, what do you guys do for social life? Oh, we promote immorality. Do as you will. All is permissible. If it feels good, do it. For government, what do you do? Oh, we create unelected bodies of unelected officials.
The bodies of people, groups of people whom nobody elected. Never. One of such group is media. Who elected them? How come they have so much power? Almost monopolistic power on your mind. They can rape your mind.
You create your own narrative with the media. The president gives you a 10-minute speech. It's followed by 2 weeks of talking heads. the unelected officials in an unelected body telling you what that speech meant.
How come they have a nerve to decide what is good and what is bad for the elected by you, president, and his administration?
What about labor and employment relations? We unionize everything, and then we control the unions. For law enforcement, what do? We publicize their abuses of power, and we promote their failures, but we minimize or even ignore their successes, and then we defund them.
Law enforcement, law and order organization and structure is being eroded. The hatred, the mistrust to the people who are supposed to protect you and enforce law and order.
At the same time, with law enforcement, I think it's trendy to hate cops right now. I honestly do. I think it's trendy to hate cops. I think it's trendy to bash cops. And I think it's a lot of people believe that it's very easy for them to Sunday morning quarterback a cop's decisions through the keyboard, which I don't like to see, particularly when those people have no law enforcement training.
Well, what do you do for the economy? Well, that's an easy one. We crash the economy.
Amazon and Walmart and all these large conglomerates and people in the professions and insurance and law, high tech, they've done pretty well. And they're the people telling the rest of the country, you've got to lock down more, you've got to lose more money, we have to have zero chance that you're going to get infected.
Yeah. And so what have we seen during this entire outbreak time? Religion has been banned from meeting and even singing.
Church choirs silenced. Singing has been banned at all church services in California. The extraordinary order from Governor Gavin Newsom comes as a new report labels churches super spreaders.
Are expressing their religious forms of worship. The educational system was closed worldwide.
Many schools around the world, as you know, have shut down, some for extended periods of time as this virus spreads.
Social life was halted. Government was supplemented by the unelected officials, where now people were at home 24/7 listening to the unelected officials tell them what everything meant. Labor and employer relations. What labor? Only the essential workers were allowed to work. Law enforcement. Riots in the streets.
Overnight, more rage and destructions in cities across the West. On Sunday, angry mobs ignoring mandatory curfews, violently clashing with police, overturning cars, torching buildings, and looting stores.
Defund and descale the police.
As thousands march in cities from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., taking a stance against police brutality. In Washington today, House Democrats will unveil legislation aimed at reforming policing policies. The bill is expected to impose new conditions on funding for law enforcement. In the meantime, the nationwide push for dismantling police departments is gaining traction. Near the White House, protesters added the words "defund the police" to a mural originally commissioned by the Department of Public Works.
So that's exactly the martial art tactic. We don't stop an enemy. We let him go. We help him to go in the direction we want them to go. Equality. Yes, equality. People are equal.
Economy. Remember Davos, the World Economic Forum, and the Great Reset?
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call.
The moment you bring a country to the point of almost total demoralization, when nothing works anymore, when you are not sure whether it is right or wrong, good and bad, but there's no division between evil and good. Violence for the sake of justice, especially social justice, is justified.
Violence in the name of justice, social justice, is justified. Even if this social justice is introduced by trained Marxists.
Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
Is it true? No, it is not true. Violence is not justified, especially for the sake of quote-unquote social justice introduced by Marxist-Leninists.
That's when you know that the process of demoralization is complete.
What are your impressions of Black Lives Matter, and how dangerous is this movement?
What I am pointing out today is that we have to distinguish between the slogan, Black Lives Matter, which is a truth statement. A lot of well-meaning people who want to show Black people that they care about them, these people are doing it by supporting the Black Lives Matter organization. And my position is that they're confusing the slogan with the organization, and the organization is part of a global movement to destroy life as we know it in America and probably in the rest of the Western world. And so this whole movement to defund the police is not about racial justice. It's about advancing a Marxist socialist agenda that will not improve the situation of Black Americans or their relationships with other groups. What we see is a lot of violence taking place, arson, and vandalism.
Exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible.
Then you can move on to the second step. And the second step is destabilization.
It takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. The influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast.
How you do it? You let them do it themselves. The area of application here is narrowing down.
As Orwell says, every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street building has been renamed.
In downtown Norfolk, Virginia, the mayor says the statue will be relocated out of concern for public safety. Protesters across America are tearing down and damaging memorials that they say honors racist figures from history.
In a color so bright it can't be missed, the mayor of Washington, D.C. ordered the streets be painted to send a message. The words stretching well beyond a full city block on a street that leads to the front door of the White House. This protest gathering point also got a new name.
Open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it.
Every date has been altered, and the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except the endless present in which the party is always right. So you create these scenarios where, the people destroy themselves. You have to get everybody in the game. There can be no bystanders.
Public divide and list of violent encounters over masks grows. This one happening July 5th in Miami.
Run-of-the-mill law-abiding citizens get caught up and treated like lifelong criminals over the slightest infraction.
A dispute over a mask led to a woman being tased by a cop at a middle school game. Of course, no, it should have never come to this.
You have to make the people put their foot down, draw a line in the sand, stand on their own ground, pound on their chest, and and show you which cards that they're going to play. And when that takes place is when you move to the next stage, which is crisis.
The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis.
The moment all these movements will be directed in one direction, right? This is the time to catch that movement and to continue it until the movement forces the whole society into collapse, into crisis.
So crisis is a state in which the society has reached a tipping point where people can't take it anymore. Society will no longer function because the success of the destabilization process through the demoralization process, those two phases are now complete. The population at large, they need hope. So the religious folk, they look for a messiah figure. Somebody's going to come and save the day. The secular people, they look for a political leader. After all, as Yuri says, people have families to feed. Give us a strong leader with a strong socialist government with centralized power to bring back this stabilized society for everyone, right? This leaves you a few alternatives. So you get civil war, restructuring from the ground up. You get invasion, restructuring from the outside in. Or you get a savior, like the crisis killer, is what they're trying to promote with this whole new the vaccine.
Until we have that vaccine, letting our guard down means potentially exposing millions of our people to the virus.
Until we get almost everybody vaccinated globally, we still won't be fully back to normal.
And yes, until a vaccine arises.
Literally billions of those vaccines, because this is a global problem.
Until an effective vaccine is widely available.
Normality, as it was before, will not come back full on until we get a vaccine.
We won't be completely safe until we have a vaccine.
Legislative amendments that would make vaccinations mandatory for public school students unless they have a medical exemption. Religious and philosophical exemptions would no longer be allowed.
The thing that'll get us back to the world that we had before coronavirus is the vaccine.
So now this takes you to the normalization process.
With a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization.
Quote, a new normal.
A new normal.
It is a new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal.
A new normal. A new normal.
A new normal.
Embrace the new normal.
The new normal.
New normal. A new normal.
The new normal. The new normal.
The new normal.
A new normal.
The new normal.
Or the new normal.
A new normal.
The new normal is the new norm.
A new normal.
This is the new normal.
I have repeatedly said, this is our new normal.
To our new normal. Our new normal.
New normal. The new normal.
Our new normal.
We will transition into the new normal.
The new normal.
So it's not going to be returned to normal. People will have to realize this is not going to go away anytime soon.
This will be the new normal.
A new normal that allows us to function more and more openly as a society.
You know what, all these mantras, one world together at home, stay strong, apart but united, social distancing, the new normal. You know what these socialist propaganda phrases remind me of? They kept repeating all those buzzwords. September 11th, Saddam Hussein, war and danger, weapons of mass destruction, global terrorism, terrorism, and terrorists. They kept repeating it over and over and over and over and over again in the Vote 2004 campaign to convince the American people that we needed a war in Iraq.
In the heart of this great city, we saw tragedy arrive on a quiet morning. September the 11th. September the 11th. September the 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th.
September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. September 11th. 2001.
Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein.
War and danger. Continuing danger.
Hour of danger.
Very, very dangerous world.
A grave new threat.
Horrific acts of atrocities. Murderous regimes dedicating to killing us. Tyranny and terror. Slaughtered thousands.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons programs. The deadliest of weapons. Terrible weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Poison gas. Torture chambers. Mass graves. Deadly technologies. Radical ideology of hate. Terror. A threat.
Terror.
Terror.
Terror. War on terrorism.
War against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism. 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 Terrorism.
The evil terror
terrorists. Terrorists, 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 terrorists. Of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized."
And so in this process, the artificial bodies with their unelected officials, they don't need a revolution anymore. So they go through a cleansing phase, right, to usher in this new system of power. This is where all the liberal activists, the liberal philosophers, the professors, the Marxists, the Leninists, and all those that are so-called trained, this is the time where they're being systematically eliminated.
Simply because, you see, the useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, when they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructors specifically made a point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Reach, filthy rich movie makers, intellectuals, so-called academic circles. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie.
So what is democratic socialism?
What is democratic socialism?
What is that? What is democratic socialism?
Democratic socialism is your kid's public school.
It's our public libraries and museums.
And our national parks.
We have to say yes to socialism, to the word and everything.
So this is where you scream, but he's a socialist! Yeah, he is a socialist Democrat. Now let me explain what that is.
All these people did was take off their hats that said communist, put that down, and put another hat on that said social democrat. But you notice that the heads underneath the hats didn't change.
He's a Democrat. He just believes that people who don't have the same advantages as you and me should be given the same advantages as you and me.
These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles.
So they've done their job, and they're no longer needed. The new rulers, well, they need stability now, right? So they want to take over and enjoy the victory of this psychological war. So the original destabilization arm used to bring about all of these changes, it has to go. And the people with it, they know too much.
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. These people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. Same thing was done under the guidance of the Soviet embassy in Hanoi, and same thing I was doing in New Delhi. To my horror, I discovered that in the files where people were doomed to execution, there were names of pro-Soviet journalists with whom I was personally friendly. The moment they serve their purpose, all the useful idiots are either be executed entirely, all the idealistically minded Marxists, or exiled or put in prison.